Okay, to the court.
Yeah, it's already being recorded, so I have to do it more.
So different crowd. Well.
Sorry, I just gotta log in. That's me. I love when it tells me there's no Wi-Fi. Seeing that it's 6 o'clock, I'm gonna call this meeting of the Enfield Select Board to order. And we're gonna hang on for a second while the internet decides it's gonna connect to do the public hearing. I'm also not gonna be this short.
Questions upstairs if we need them.
There, okay, now I'm not on the
Parking
floor.
lot.
Yay, internet. No, that's good. For some reason, sometimes it doesn't. I can't, because I think flash this. This is all the new USB. Just turn off the sound. Make sure. Are they things you have here?
It's never gonna.
Okay. It's telling me that I'm in the, they're like, you're in the new team. Do you want to switch back?
Oh, you're racing.
Let's do that on a regular basis.
Right? Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, no, but seriously.
I'm like, I know.
Yes, no, I would, so I sort of an active vote. But, yeah, any questions?
It's not having me today. Do you want?
I will share.
Sorry about that. It's just not gonna let me sign in. I have too many copies of Teams. So we've done the call to order. And so I'm gonna remind everybody, if you quick housekeeping reminders before we start the public hearing, just so that everybody in the room can hear and so that we get an accurate recording, both for the minute taker and for the folks who listen in online. I want to make sure we don't have any crosstalk in the back of the room. So you should wait until you're called on and then direct your comments up here to the board. Please state your full name for our minute taker each time you speak. And we're going to try to have everybody stick to about 3 minutes to be fair, because we have lots of folks here and want to be able to listen to everyone. So with that, I'm going to call the public hearing to order. Oops, it is, I don't even have the time. 6:04. And this is the public hearing on the adoption of SB 2. The warrant article was submitted by citizen petition, and we're going to just give a quick factual presentation so that you guys have a basic understanding of the elements. This is a required hearing, but it's required by New Hampshire law. It's not something that we can change. And we also cannot change what the petition warrant article says at this time. That doesn't mean we won't listen to you, but most of the listening and any of the deliberation is going to be done at town meeting. So let's just run through a quick review. and it's up on the screen as well. So shall we adopt the provisions of RSA 40:13, known as SB2, to allow official ballot voting on all issues before the town of Enfield on the second Tuesday of March? And this article has been placed on the warrant by a citizen petition. Next slide is, so this is RSA 40:13 is the use of official ballot. So the town meeting is held in two sessions. The first session is held between the first and second Saturdays following the last Monday in January, inclusive of those Saturdays. Under SB2 in 2025, the first session would be held on or between February 1st and February 8th. And then the second session shall be held on the second Tuesday in March. In 2025, the second session would be held on March 11th. So what happens at the first session? So there's an explanation, discussion, and debate of each warrant article as proposed by the select board or included by citizen petition. Warrant articles may be amended at this session subject to limitations. These are as follows. Warrant articles whose wording is prescribed by law shall not be amended. That's what this is. You can't amend it. Warrant articles that are amended shall be placed on the official ballot for final vote on the main motion as amended. No warrant article shall be amended to eliminate the subject matter of the article. An amendment that changes the dollar amount of an appropriation in a warrant article shall not be deemed to violate the subparagraph, but this one is not about money. So the first session operates a lot like town meeting does today. Voters attending will discuss and debate the merits of the articles, approve articles for inclusion on the ballot as written, or voted to amend. Attendance at this session is as important as attendance in a traditional town meeting. What happens at the first session? Next slide. Okay. So for adoption or amendment of an ordinance, the ballot may contain a topical description of the substance of the ordinance or amendment instead of the full text. When a topical description is used on the official ballot, an official copy of the proposed ordinance or amendment will be made publicly available. And it's not later than 1 week before the second session, and it needs to be on display at the second session. So what happens in the second session? There's a vote by official ballot to elect officers of the town, vote on all warrant articles from the first section. Approval of all warrant articles are by simple majority except for questions that require a 3/5 vote. If a 3/5 majority vote is required, it will be so noted on the warrant article. So to be as informed and involved in the process as possible, voters are highly recommended to attend the first session and educate themselves on the issues that will be voted on. So can you vote absentee? Under SB2, all registered voters are able to cast an absentee ballot if they are unable to make it to the polls. So as with other ballot voting, this is paper ballot voting on voting day, you can request an absentee ballot through the town clerk. So something to know, it's a little bit different. It's not available right now under the town meeting format, and that is what is a default budget? So people talk about a default budget, but in the town meeting format, there is no such thing. It's something that exists in SB2. So if the operating budget fails, the town shall be deemed to have approved the default budget, or the select board may hold a special meeting to take up the issue of a revised operating budget. The default budget means the amount of the same appropriations as contained in the operating budget authorized for the previous year, reduced and increased, as the case may be, by debt service contracts and other obligations previously incurred or mandated by law, and reduced by one-time expenditures contained in the operating budget and by salaries and benefits of positions that have been eliminated in the proposed budget. So prior year budget appropriations will be adjusted by the actual current year debt services needs and contracts. One-time expenditures and the prior year budget would be removed. For instance, strategic planning costs unless under contract or upgrading a basketball court. No new one-time expenditures would be added. Should a position be eliminated, the amount of the salary and benefits included in the prior year budget would be removed. The public is encouraged to be involved in the budget development process by attending meetings during the budget development. More on the default budget. So in calculating the default budget amount, the select board as the governing body shall follow the statutory formula, which may result in a higher or lower amount than the proposed operating budget. The default budget shall be disclosed and presented for questions and discussion at the first budget hearing. The question on the ballot concerning the operating budget will include the proposed budget as well as a disclosure of the default budget in the event the article is defeated. The select board will provide to the voters line item details for changes, including at minimum appropriations contained in the previous year's operating budget, reductions and increases to the previous year's operating budget, one-time expenditures, reductions for eliminated positions and benefit expenditures. Changes made to calculate the default budget will all be provided and broken out. So there's a bunch of new deadlines. I am not gonna read this chart to you guys unless somebody wants it read. Does anybody, by show of hands, want me to read this chart to you? So basically, it's the what and the when, though. The timeline for SB2 pulls everything forward, so it becomes a little bit earlier in the year. So for example, we'll just look at what, one of them. The final date to submit petition warrant articles, except for bonds over $100,000, would be the second Tuesday in January. Does anyone need a little more time to read this? And is anyone unable to see? Okay. And then we can take any questions or comments, or if it's the will of the board and the public would like to do so, we'd invite the lead petitioner to come forward. Let's have Debbie, come on down.
Good evening, everyone. I don't know if you want me to address anything specific. I mean, you covered all the specifics of the details of how it would work. I guess I would add that I think at this point in our history where we're trying to stop certain people from voting, that this is really important to let everybody vote on all articles. And it seems more equitable to me if we do it all on Tuesday. So that's kind of my main impetus, is that, excuse me, to give everybody the opportunity to vote.
I think, we kind of just provided the basic framework.
Mhm.
So I think it makes sense, unless the board has any questions, to open it up to questions from the public. We can answer factual ones, and then things that are more, a piece of discernment, maybe if you'd be willing to answer them. Is that fair?
Yes.
Okay. Is the board on board with that?
Mhm.
All right. And Alice did make it online. So Alice is online. I can see her as a guest, and she is a select board member. We were not sure. She's probably going to come and go, so you guys know, because she is on public transportation. So we can pray to the public transportation higher ups that it works out. So does anybody in the public have a question? Because it is, this is a piece of legalese. We're not lawyers, but we can try. And if we can't answer your question tonight, we can help get you an explanation. Okay, go ahead, Dave.
Dave Buffet, I don't really have questions for, as many of you know, I've long opposed this procedure for voting. And after some further discussion and seeing the way things are going in town, I'm sort of reluctantly supporting this. I have concerns that turnout, particularly for the first session, needs to be sustained, because if only a few people show up, and for example, there were 18 Enfield voters at the school district first session this time. It only takes a few members to turn an article around in a way that may not be what the town would like to vote on, but they have no choice once it's done. This school first session, I had a number of voters, or a number of residents from a community that I won't necessarily name, that offered probably 10 or more amendments to articles, all in all, to substantially reduce the cost. Luckily, there were enough people attending that meeting, not many of us, I'm afraid, that those were turned back. But it's certainly a risk if they had 15 more people from their group, they probably could have passed those and reduced things substantially, disrupted that. I still think it's a good idea in terms of the, allowing people to vote who are not able to attend or don't want to attend, the meeting as traditional, organized. It's also, important, still to vote on, the second session, and, that's always tended to be a low turnout, election. And perhaps this will increase that turnout. I would hope so. Thank you.
Can I respond to that?
Yeah, of course.
So yes, there were more people at the school deliberative than there have been for a while. So the vote on these amendments to reduce each of the warrant articles was 5 to 60. So we were still, in good shape. I know there's been an argument about the deliberative session and that people don't attend it for the school district. But I can remind people of when we were voting to try to get the school renovation and addition in the high school. I mean, the Indian River School gym was packed to capacity. People were there. When there's something to talk about, they show up. And the same thing when they tried to remove the superintendent. We had to relocate to the high school auditorium because there were so many people there. So I find that because the school district budget has been pretty level funded for the last few years, that's why we don't get a lot of turnout. Usually we usually have a negotiation so that the teachers will either come or the support staff will come. But I believe that in Enfield, when we have big money projects, people will come to the deliberative session just like they do come to a town meeting or try to come to town meeting.
Go ahead, Madeline.
Hi, I'm Madeline Johnson. I have a question because we were just sort of talking about it before we came. We've done this before in Enfield, and I just wondered if there was anybody here who remembers that and sort of how it came about and what happened with it and why we went back to the current system.
I remember being at the town meetings when they were Tuesday nights before it went to SB2. I don't think I was involved at all when they changed to SB2 last time, and I'm not sure why they changed that.
I wasn't involved at that time, although I've certainly talked with people who were. And you know, they're differing opinions. Certainly one opinion was this growing concern that people were not coming to the deliberative sessions. And we see that here when we have a public hearing, right? If we get 20 people in the room for a major public hearing, we think we're doing really, really well. That's a concern I have. And also, I think in the past, there was a growing concern that people were coming just to vote and mainly to vote against whatever budget appeared.
So I did some research a couple years ago when
Yeah.
this was on, and in the state of New Hampshire, very few towns who've gone to SB2 have ever gone back to town meeting. Enfield is one of them. But I would say the time period in which that happened, the internet wasn't as prevalent, right? So you didn't have access to meetings in the same way. I'd say things have changed how we access information and data, how we look at the meetings. Before you could go downtown and get a copy of the minutes. Now you can get them online. You can see them on YouTube. So I can't speak for the people who, voted back then, and switched back to in person, but I think it was really hard to access information. It's around the same era that we looked at eliminating SB2 from the school district. And that did not pass, but I think it's definitely a conversation that's been had. And so it's fine having it again. Obviously, we statutorily have to have it. And that question you could ask at town meeting, and perhaps somebody who was involved would get up. Yeah. Go ahead.
Thomas Lockett.
Mhm.
So if SB2 were to make out as a warrant article and pass,
Mhm.
Is the rollback process the same if it was tried and seen as not being the way that people want to do it? Is it same petition to create a warrant article and then comes up for vote and passed to
It
move
can,
back.
it can do, you can go two ways, right? It can be a warrant article that's put forward by the board if they felt like there was adequate concern for some reason. It could also be a petition warrant article. It's not the same exact warrant article. There is legal wording that's required by the state, but it would be a similar process. Dave?
As I recall, it's at least a 3/5 majority to go either way. Either to turn, to turn now to SB2 or to go back. And I believe that there's a second session of some sort that I'd have to go back in detail to go back, but that was done before my time as moderator, so it's 30 years ago.
Both require a public hearing. We have some online. Okay. I'm gonna finish with the folks in front of us though, before I switch to online, just to kind of keep organized. So, sir, you were first and then. Yep.
Is there a middle ground here? I mean, it seems that what we're trying to do is to get people to get educated in the votes, even if they can't be at the actual town meeting. Is there a way with the current system to have absentee ballots allowed?
So we're statutorily forbidden from changing New Hampshire's.
New Hampshire law says it, or?
New Hampshire RSA's dictate, there's only two forms. So the only way you could change that would be to lobby your state representative with another form and get it passed.
Thank you. Can I make one comment? David, in your session about the school budget, we didn't get our notification or any information about it until 3 days after the event happened.
I know it's
So,
always.
I mean, it's hard to make it to a meeting that you're 3 days late for.
Go ahead, Susan, you were next.
It's the quote I've used a lot. Thomas Jefferson said, "Town meeting is the wisest invention ever devised by the wit of man for the perfect exercise of self-government." I understand, and I would like to see data that having SB2 increases participation in the deliberative session and in town meeting where in voting on the articles. And I haven't heard that it does. I think it's about the same. I think that when you go to town meeting, you get to discuss what's happening and you get to vote on it at the same time. And people get really good information and really good opinions. I am totally opposed to SB2 in any form. I haven't seen that it's improved participation anywhere. I'm finished, but I'm going by my one.
Okay, you're finished, sorry. Okay, go ahead, sir.
Yeah, Tom Claus, I want to say that I'm in favor of this warrant article, because I think that it allows a lot of people that aren't able to attend the meeting and vote. You got snowbirds, so people that go away for the winter every year. You have people that are on vacation, just happen to be on vacation at that time. You have people that might be sick, can't attend the meeting. So there's a whole class of people that you're automatically excluding when you have to be at the meeting and voting. So that's why I'm for it. The question I have is just basically how the logistics of the absentee ballot will work. So how soon can someone request it? How is it going to be sent to them by mail? Are they going to download it by the internet? And how are they going to submit it? And when does it have to be there in order to count as a vote?
So that's all dictated by New Hampshire law. And so right now, if you get an absentee ballot for an item that calls for a paper ballot statutorily, you would it would be the same process. So you can either go in person to the town clerk. I believe she takes emails. And so it usually is, you can pick it up in person, you can have it mailed if you're a snowbird. There's many, many options. That is all fulfilled by the town clerk, who is an elected official. So, and none of it is dictated by the town ourselves. It's all by New Hampshire statute. I think in terms of timing, when she takes it.
A request for absentee ballot can be taken before the ballots are even arriving.
Yeah.
That happens shortly after all the meetings are held and
Mhm.
You know, the form of questions.
And then when would that absentee ballot have to be received in order to count? Is there like a window, that type of thing? Just curious.
I don't know the exact time, but typically for most elections, it is, if it's hand delivered absentee, which can happen, it's the day before.
Mhm.
If it's the day of, we check the mail. I'm not sure exactly what time, but it's.
No, yeah.
Just a question.
Yeah, just, can you wait just
Yeah.
a second? So, but when you're saying check the mail is checked at the end of the business day and it's brought over. The problem is if your mail happens to not come in time, there's no provisional ballots, like some states have. So it's very important to not wait for the last minute. I just want to be clear, to be fair to everybody, because the idea here we're discussing is being inclusive. And so I want to make sure you get your vote counted by getting it in. And we know, no disrespect for the postal folks. They're working very hard, but we all know some days things just don't deliver. So, Susan, is this a quick question?
Yeah, it's really two things. Are you going to provide childcare? And the other thing is, last year you did send out the warrant to everybody in town. And I think that was a really, really good thing to do, and I hope you continue to do it. Because then you can inform people and they will show up, but we have to work at getting people to show up. And you said some people leave, but they could choose to stay for town meeting. They don't have to go away.
So that's not related to the SB2 discussion. That's related to the town meeting. We can discuss that separately under public comment.
Well, I'm thinking of how do you increase participation?
We can have that conversation. We have to stick to, because this is a public hearing that's statutorily required, we have to stick to the actual, and we can certainly answer that in public comment. Before I go to Dave, is there somebody else who hasn't asked their question? Go ahead.
Dan Regan, so I'm trying to make my mind up, just trying to listen a lot tonight. The things I would say is I agree with Susan. I love town meeting. Town meeting is Americana. There's nothing like it. Where you get to hear different people's points of view, you get to make up your own mind, and then you get to actually vote. The thing that intrigues me by SB2, however, is the idea of more people voting. I agree with what Tom said. We want to get as many people out there as possible. And I'd love to see the data. Does it actually result in more people voting, or is it just theoretical that we believe it? And you said you've done some research. I'd be interested, Kate, in anything you have on that. And then the last point I'll make is the idea of this default budget really concerns me. I think anytime some folks have an opportunity to say, yeah, I don't like that budget, let's vote against it. There's nothing of substance behind it other than a default, which means you go to last year's budget. So this year we're building 2 new buildings. We've had a number of considerations. If we just go to a default, we're kind of shooting ourselves in the foot. We're kicking the can down the road, and I think we need to face reality as often as possible. So I'd like to hear the board's point of view on those 3 points.
So one of the things that's provided for in the default budget is, so if you've already made a commitment at a prior town meeting, that would be covered. So these buildings were a commitment made by a vote of a prior town meeting. And so that would be within the default budget. So well, I hear your concern, that large chunk, which is significant in this budget, and I want to honor that fact. That would not be as big of a deal as, say, you had decided that you, for whatever reason, the world changes and you need a new position, and it's significant and it's urgent, you would not be able to add that new position. So that's the kind of thing that you come up against. It certainly is a concern. Deb, I know you have a lot of experience with this
That's
in the.
what I was gonna say. Anything that's been approved, by vote, previously voted, like the support staff and the teachers have a CBA, contract bargaining agreement that runs over 3 years. And because that was approved separately as a separate warrant article, it would be all their increases would be included in a default budget, as are, any benefits that are contractually obligated. Those are in the CBA. They all fall under that.
Just a comment,
It's just 1 second, because we're going around, I'm trying
I
my
just
very,
wanted to add to.
you're elaborating and answering the question.
Yes, I was gonna say, it specifically says that debt service is part of it.
Okay, go ahead.
Sue Gibson, can you just explain a little bit, is this SB2 taking away the town meeting?
It's yes and no. It is, yes,
Yes.
it is, it becomes what you do when you sit together and you talk about it becomes a meeting called deliberative session. So you still review the warrant articles, but you're voting on how they go onto the ballot.
So how do you think that you're gonna get more people out on a Tuesday night to vote versus a Saturday?
So, and that's something we can't speculate on necessarily. I can tell you that Eric, who is not here tonight, who's a board member, has been tracking Tuesday voting versus town meeting attendance for years. You can pull it very easily. Anyone can do this exercise right out of the annual report. So you take last year's report, right? And it tells you the number of voters. So you can see the kind of trend line. We do have more Tuesday ballot voters than we have in-person voters.
Okay, so one more question then.
Mhm.
If you can, have absentee ballot
Mhm.
voting
Mhm.
for a town meeting,
Mhm.
then how is this?
So you can't have it for the town meeting articles. So that right now with town meeting, the articles are separated into articles that are discussed in person and voted on at town meeting. That means they're either approved or disapproved at town meeting. They can be amended at town meeting. And then you have your ones that by state statute have to be on a paper ballot. And so, for example, an example of a town meeting requirement is this SB2 hearing that we're having tonight is a statutory requirement. Again, at town meeting, we will look at the petition warrant article together. It's statutorily prescribed, so it cannot be amended. But this whole discussion, similar to what you're having right now, will be had and it will be voted up or down, up or down. That has to, by New Hampshire law, be done in person. There is no option to put it onto a paper ballot to be more inclusive. So those are the kind of things that happen. Things like zoning changes go onto paper ballots. I'm not gonna go through an exhaustive list, but you know, it's, so if you have something you wanna know, like, hey, if this was a scenario, would it go on a paper ballot or would it go to town meeting? In the town meeting format, we could probably answer. I'm just not gonna think of an exhaustive list right now. Does that help a little? I know they're similar, but they're not the same animal and the timeline is different. Go ahead.
Marty Gibson, I'd like to circle back around to what Dan says. Does the town have any data to support that going to SB2 will create any benefit in terms of voter turnout? Will do anything advantageous for the town? If they do, I'd like to see that data if you have it available or make it available online so that we could take a look at it.
So because we're not the petitioners on this, that's something that we wouldn't put out. If we were going to make a compelling argument, we would assemble that data. This is a petition warrant article we've accepted it. So I think if Deb, if you want to do it, certainly you could distribute it. I would say, and you can look at other towns who have switched online. There's plenty of data. So I've kind of done my own personal peek. I did not compile it. I also can back to looking at Tuesday voters versus Saturday voters. That's available in every single, and we can see if Eric can provide. I think he did last time.
When you say Tuesday voters, what?
Tuesday voters are the paper ballot voters. So the turnout for paper ballot voting, we have that number, right? And then we have the number of people who signed in because the wonderful folks who sign us all in, who are the supervisors of the checklist, have those numbers for us. So we can track those. We can't necessarily project whether it's going to ebb or flow, but we can tell you what they have been. I'm gonna do Sharon and then. Yeah.
I think one other difference that I understand between SB2 and town meeting are the way, and I'm gonna ask for a little bit of clarification on this, because I'm not certain. I think the way the articles are presented, that if it's at town meeting, it's the full articles that were presented to the voters. Whereas if it's SB2, that deliberative session, those people at the deliberative session can change the intent of those articles. There's some change that people can make at an SB2 meeting, modifications, so that maybe the voters, once they get those articles, they weren't the same articles that the voters don't get to really kind of debate the full story about the budget.
So just so that it's, I get what I'm gonna try to restate it so that because I get where you're going with this. So at town meeting, you don't look at each and every article, right? You look at just the town meeting articles and you never touch the ones that go to the paper ballot. Because they are separate. And so SB2 format, like we saw in the presentation, you are allowed to change the intent, but not the subject. So I'm gonna give you a non-town example so that we're fair. So once upon a time in a little school district called Mascoma, some folks decided that they felt like writing a petition article to essentially fire the superintendent. Not the nicest thing, but you can do it, right? That went in front of the voters. The subject is the superintendent. The intent was to fire them. So petitioners came together and there was a whole crowd at the microphone. Some of the folks in this room were here together. And they changed the intent to the word commend. So it became an article to commend the superintendent. That went on to the ballot, right? So does that kind of help explain the difference of the process, right? Because you're changing what goes on to the paper ballot. That might be clear as mud, it might not be.
Just to add, there was another school district, I'm gonna guess, was it Cornish? Croydon, thank you. A bunch of, a select group of people got together and really decimated, in that case, I think it was the school budget, and they could do it. And that was because they were SB2, correct?
Is that the deliberative session?
Yes.
Yeah.
So yes.
And do you want to add to my
53%.
explanation? Do you want to add to my explanation on the difference? I'm not sure.
So you can't change the subject of a warrant article. I mean, but you can modify it at deliberative session, and that's what goes on the ballot.
Yeah.
That's why people try to they'll try to cut the warrant articles by a certain dollar amount.
Dan, do you have a clarification question, or I had Dan Kiley next otherwise? Is it a new
It
question?
was kind of a follow-up to what I asked before. I don't think I got the answer though.
I'm sorry.
Let me rephrase.
Yep.
Can I respectfully request that each of the select board members give us their point of view on this issue?
Sure. Absolutely, but I'm gonna do Dan first because that's kind of a new.
Okay.
Okay.
All I'm going to say is on Tuesday, when you vote for a selectman, there's normally over 300 votes that it takes to be a selectman. We never have 300 people at town meeting.
We can go down the table and just kind of give your opinion if that's okay with the board. John?
I have spoken against SB2 in the past, for a number of different reasons. One is I think it is of historic value. It's part of the structure and fabric of the community. Two, because I honestly believe that people's minds are changed in those deep discussions. We get incredible information, well presented. And there is a genuine, I think, interest of the people there. I worry tremendously about these deliberative sessions. I've been a selectman here for 16 years now. I do not often see even this many people for the most important kinds of decisions that we're trying to make. And my concern is if we just have a small group of people at deliberative sessions, they might say fine tuning things, but possibly, why do people go? Some people are going to go just because they want to cut the budget. This is a reality. We've seen this in all over the place, right? It's a concern. I think that we get a more balanced approach at town meeting.
I have to agree somewhat with John in that I feel the value of town meeting is educational. I believe that if someone shows up and they don't have an opinion, they'll find by listening to the folks who make a presentation or people sitting next to them, that they will be able to form an opinion as to which way they want to vote. I think that there's a great deal of discussion that occurs before people pass a vote one way or the other at town meeting. It's too easy, I feel, under SB2 to treat it as a toggle. The other difficulty, I think, will be the creation, which is required, of a default budget, which has to be presented at SB2. I think if you present a default budget, it's naturally going to be less than the budget you're presenting that has been worked very hard on by a budget committee. So now budget committee has to come up with a default budget, and they have to justify, well, why is the default budget going to work if you have this other budget that you're also presenting? I think they work hard to present a budget that's going to work. It doesn't have a lot of fluff in it. In our history, I've been on the budget committee. You present a budget which is going to work. If you have to also come up with a default budget and present that, then you have to justify, well, why is the default budget going to work? And the answer would be, well, it's not going to work, but I was required to create a default budget. And I believe people are going to pull the toggle and vote for the default budget. I won't say out of spite, but I will say out of lack of education, because they won't have attended the budget meetings. They won't appreciate what the budget committee has prepared through many, many weeks of hard effort. So I have to think that although I'm sorry that not enough people attend town meeting, and I wish there was a way to get more people there, that is still the best way for people to learn about how much money is being spent for their town. As to the rest of the warrant articles, which might be at town meeting, they don't involve the kind of money that a budget does. And I believe that people deserve the right to discuss it with their neighbor and learn something about it before just voting on it.
So I've had a really big change of heart over the years, and I've worn quite a few different hats in our community. But I think I want to start when way back in the dinosaur age when I was a little kid. My parents took me to town meeting, and they took me to all of their meetings, and I sat under the table and I played quietly, and it was part of how I learned to participate here. So town meeting is deeply instilled in my heart, and I love it. I signed on this petition warrant article because I continuously hear in our community that people are disenfranchised for one reason or another from voting. And it's not something that's mean, right? It might be that your kid has a basketball game. It might be a series of choices. You might be out of town for work. And so I feel like this is an important discussion to have as a larger community. I definitely want to have it again. I will tell you that I helped petition to change from SB2 back to town meeting when I was a member of the school board. While it did not pass, I felt very strongly at that time we should go back. And the reason I felt we should go back was because there was a pretty negative political party that was physically counting us by the door. And I say us, like folks who have lived here a very long time. And it was very obvious what they were doing, and it was very hard to turn people out. You had to, go in your old phone book and be like, hi, did you know this is going to happen? We don't have those same problems with communication, right? It's not perfect, but we have the internet. We have access to distributing information about meetings in a lot more broad sense than we did 20 years ago. I am a parent now, and I am more than happy to take my child to town meeting. Sometimes someone gives my child something and then they crab at me later because she is making noise, but I feel like it's part of the learning process. So I'm happy to honor whatever the town decides. I personally support SB2 because I feel it's more inclusive and it is less likely to disenfranchise folks. I think when there is an important discussion, people do show up to deliberative session, and the school district has definitely shown that. We're going to make this work whichever way the voters tell us they want to do it. So if folks come to us at town meeting and they say that they want to keep town meeting, we're going to do it. And I'm going to honor it, and I am not going to crab. And if they say they want to go to SB2, I'm going to make that work too. Alice, are you online in a capacity you can speak?
I think so, if you can hear me.
Sure hear you. So this is Alice
Great,
Kennedy,
okay.
who is
Thank you, Kate. So I just want to echo what you were saying, Kate, that I will fully support the will of the town, however this ends up going down. But I also do appreciate the opportunity for whoever asked for us to share our thoughts kind of as private citizens. I'm new to this form of government, having moved here in 2018. It's fascinating, storied, steeped in history. I think I have concerns about the disenfranchised voters, about people who cannot make it to town meeting. I want as many people to be involved as possible, right? I have concerns about what can be done during the deliberative session, what a small group of people can do. As a private citizen, I might feel a sense of relief if we go to SB2 and say, oh, I only have to vote on Tuesday night. Phew. And I don't know what can happen in the deliberative session. But the stories that I hear, and it seems slightly concerning to me. So I would just share that. I don't have a very strong feeling either way, but I do have concerns about the deliberative session.
Thank you, Alice. So that gives you kind of an idea. And so Eric Russell is traveling for work, so he is not able to be with us today. I will ask Eric for the data that he has tracked and see if it's something we can share out. I think it's, you know, it won't tell us the entire story. We'll help you. You can craft your own opinion based on the data. Does that help you? Okay, go ahead, Kurt.
I have some of the data that people have been asking about. Excuse me, I'm just gonna summarize it because the numbers naturally bounce a little bit. But I went back to 1980 and I took the November national election data to get a comparison. And typically Enfield has somewhere between 70 to 80% turnout in November elections. And then on the Tuesday voting, the town voting on Tuesday, where we go to the booth and do the paper ballots. Typically, it was in the Tuesday, somewhere between 15 to 20%, depending on the year and what's on the ballots. SB2, the town did SB2 from 97 to 2001. And the Tuesday voting, the actual voting was averaged around 25% of the people. I don't know what the deliberative session numbers were. I don't know if that's available or not, so how deep you have to dig to get how many people showed up at a deliberative session. And then when the town went back to this traditional town meeting, once again, the Tuesday voting was still in the 10 to 15%. But the Saturday voting has consistently been, since 1980 at least, less than 15% and typically runs around 5% for most years. And that's going back to 1980. So it's that same core group of people. If you go to town meeting, you recognize all the faces. If you go several years in a row, that's who shows up. It's going to be somewhere around 5% of the registered voters. But even on the Tuesday, we're still in the 15 to 20% compared to a 70 to 80% for a November election. So it's just a matter of choice. People are just making the choices to vote or not to vote.
Go ahead, Deb.
I'd like to respond to that just because the town has a budget committee as well as a select board. And I think we elect people that we trust to do that work. We trust them to do the budget. So I think that's what a lot of people look at and say, well, they know what we need, they know what they're doing. I'm not gonna micromanage them. So I think that's a lot of times people show up when they're not happy, but when they're happy and things are going okay, I think you do get lower turnout.
I anecdotally will share that I've had some conversations with folks in town, and so people have very strong feelings typically about voting. They either feel like are very much in the camp of you don't vote, you can't complain, right? You didn't control. Or there are folks, and I don't think this is as well known, there are a lot of folks who feel like that not voting is a choice and a form of voting because they feel like they're being adequately represented and the way other people vote typically represents them. I know that that's not, you know, something we talk a lot about, but not voting is also a choice, right? To stick with whatever your neighbors are voting on your behalf. It's not direct representation. in the sense of town meeting, but it is a forum. So it's something that I hadn't thought a lot about over the years, because I've always been a big advocate of getting out there and voting, but it's just something to kind of take into consideration, right? I'm not advocating one way or another, but it's just another form of thinking. I want to continue with folks in this room who have not spoken yet, and then we'll go to online. I've not forgotten you online. Go ahead.
Hi, Joan Pro. Question. Voting for SB2, what are the hours as compared to town meeting?
So we start our voting at 8 a.m., right? 8 a.m. and it goes until 7 p.m. And those are our standard hours. If for some reason that was to change, it has to be publicly noticed. But that's been our standard hours for all of our elections for a very long time.
For everything? Because I'm
Yep, national elections, everything.
I'm just curious because I've been to the last 3 town meetings and basically what I see is people vote for certain things and then bye-bye. I mean, I was sitting outside in the cold waiting for SB2 to come up the last time. I was one of a whole maybe 80 people left out of, you know, everybody voted for the town buildings and that stuff. And then they just took off. And I guess what I'm hearing from a lot of my neighbors and people that, you know, we meet on walks and things like that in town, the elderly are not gonna go to town meeting. They're simply not gonna, they can't sit on bleachers for hours. I mean, there would have to be a whole different avenue for people like that. They can't do it. Then you've got the hourly workers, which we have quite a few neighbors who are hourly workers. They do not get paid if they're not at work. So basically, their vote is being taken away from them in town meeting.
And just to, because we're gonna be in the Enfield gym, just to speak to like the comfort in sitting on bleachers, I want to make it very clear to everybody, you are more than welcome to bring your own chair. You'll see my child usually has like a ridiculous comfy chair and a whole setup, and anyone should be able to feel, I'm not saying you should have to, but it is something we want you to know they're welcome to do.
Hard for a 90-year-old who's on a walk because
Oh, yeah. Absolutely. No, and I think that's something that, you know, people have to consider with their friends and neighbors, certainly. You know, I haul in a small child and a bunch of stuff, and I basically have an entire cart full. And yeah, at 90, that's probably not very feasible. So we've got 2 folks who are repeats. Unless you're asking a question follow-up, I want to let the folks online, because the gentleman online's been
I want to
waiting.
just follow up
Yep.
with the question about some of the logistics about SB2 elections. They're the same as every other election. You have the hours set 7 to 8 to 7, and absentee ballots have to be received via the mail before 5 o'clock. So that allows the process to happen, and in person the day before. They cannot be delivered the day before, with the reasoning that if you can deliver a ballot in person, you can vote in person.
Do you have a question on, or a point on something?
I'm just following up on the
Okay,
point that.
yep.
What are we doing to make it exciting and interesting for people to go down meeting and more comfortable? I think that's more the crux of the issue that I've been hearing all night long, is people don't go. Well, why don't they go? Because it's not fun. What can we do to make it more fun, more exciting, more interesting? And a series of discussions.
Yeah, I think that's a question that's been asked for many, many years. And when this came up 2 years ago, we had the same discussion. And a lot of folks were kind of like, we're going to invite our neighbors and we're going to do something. I personally bought my child and any friend who said they were coming pizza. I was like, here's a blanket, here's pizza, here's a trunk of snacks, here's a bunch of juice boxes. Come to town meeting, right? It's something I personally did with my own money. The town has offered babysitting in the past through a private person who did it for free. There's a lot of ways to do that, but you know, short of, so if we want to switch to the auditorium, which we've talked about, We have to legally bus them, so that's added expense. We can use the auditorium in Canaan. It has to be posted in advance. And then we would have to bus everybody over because that's a requirement. So those are all options. They have not been met with a lot of excitement. And if somebody wants to help and wants to throw out some ideas and do that work, I think anybody who's a citizen in Enfield can do the work, right? Certainly, you know, we're probably not gonna put a lot of taxpayer expense into something grand because we're trying to be careful. But the content and the format, you know, I've been doing this I've been going most of my life, like since I can remember. And I'm not gonna lie to you, like business meetings are not exciting. And so I don't think you can dress, my personal opinion is you can't dress that up. But if someone thinks of something, you know, I'm willing to listen.
Just not sure if you want the solution to that issue.
Yeah, but I mean, we have two solutions that are offered by the New Hampshire State Legislature, and yeah, if somebody has an idea, you know, certainly could take it to our local representatives and have that discussion. So I'm gonna, the person who's online, Mike Kirk, has had his hand up for quite a while. I want to allow him to speak and give the online folks a chance, and then we'll come back for seconds out here. Mike, could you unmute yourself, please?
Yes, thank you. Thank you for taking my conversation. I want to thank whoever proposed the SB2. And just respectfully, I want to say to the gentleman who brought up Thomas Jefferson, I think if Thomas Jefferson was living in this day and age, he would support SB2. Times do change. I think it's important and fair that we get a better turnout on votes than we have been getting. Also respectfully to the two male selectmen, we are informed. We watch Channel 7. We see the select board meetings. We know what's going on. We just can't always attend the town meetings. Give us the opportunity to let our voices be heard. We're not misinformed. We are informed. I think you guys know that the local cable station puts you guys on. Every meeting is recorded and aired. It's not like we don't know what's going on. It's just that we can't always attend. Please give us an avenue for our voices to be heard. Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. Is there anybody else who's online who hasn't had an opportunity to speak or ask a question that would like to do so? Okay, I'm gonna go back for anybody in this group in front of me who hasn't spoken yet, who wants to speak or ask a question. I'll do first questions first, and then we'll do seconds. Is anybody not spoken that wants to speak? Okay, so second question in the back.
Thomas Lockett.
Yep.
Sorry, this question comes up out of ignorance, but I'm not lucky enough to have a second home, but how does SB2 work, and how does town meeting voting work for, say, someone that lives out of state and they've got a second home in Enfield? Do they have to be a resident of the state to vote in the town meeting, or do they just have to be a property owner, and then they can at least vote on town budget versus state issues and federal issues?
Yep, that's a very fair question. So in New Hampshire, to be on the voter roll and to register as a voter, because we don't maintain separate voter rolls for the town and the state feds. So you have to be a resident. So this needs to be your primary residence, and anybody can choose their primary residence, even if they have two homes. If they would like to vote in Enfield, they can pick us. We'd be thrilled to have them.
But you have to, you have to live here for a certain amount of time. You can't, I mean, there are requirements for being a resident. You can't just say you are.
It's very unlikely that someone's gonna go after you for them, but yes.
But there are, I mean,
Oh, yeah.
you can't pick and choose.
Yeah, if you go through the attorney general office and you can prove someone else, but you can prove a challenge, you might get through it. It's something where if you move here, you don't have to be here. There's no, you have to be here for X number of days. Like when you go to a company and you need to wait X number of days for insurance, right? So if you move to Enfield tomorrow and you're like, hi, I'm here, I live here. If you can show, you know, that you can prove you're a resident and you have the correct documentation, things like a bill with your address, your driver's license, maybe you bought a house, so you have your deed, all of those things count. Switch in the same token, if you decide you want to switch your primary residence tomorrow, you technically can. So there's no, I have to live here X number of days.
But you can't be a resident somewhere else.
You can only be a primary resident of one location. And if you file in both, you are committing voter fraud, and I would actively discourage that. And I would hope no one would.
But isn't it taxation without representation?
No, you've bought real estate, you made a decision as an adult.
Yeah, so, these, delivered sessions, I know there's been a lot of people that voice some concerns about that. Is it gonna be like this meeting where it's gonna be online?
No, we do not have an online component because the state does not provide any provisions for online participation. So they could watch a video stream, which is what the school district has done, which is very nice. Over the years, had a YouTube stream, we can have a stream, but in terms of participating, there's no participation in voting component that's electronic. And until the state changes that, for some reason,
So there is, so it will be televised, or we'll be able to see it, just not participate.
and what have we done? Did we do Teams last time, or how did we show it?
We didn't have any electronic way of doing SB2.
Yeah.
No, not SB.
So,
Yeah, no, because when we're out in the field, like when we were out in the field,
and town
Really?
meeting has been,
So, and we had discussed whether we could get that running or not, but there's going to be a video that you're going to be able to see a video even if it's later.
Okay, because I think that would be really important to support SB2, to have that option available for people to be informed, like Mark had commented, I think it was Mark's comment.
But you can only vote in person. So there's no support or not support, right? It's the whole discussion and the voting on SB2 takes place in person on Saturday, March 16th.
So I totally understand.
Okay.
Just saying,
Okay, I just want to make sure.
No, that's-
I'm not trying to be a jerk.
I'm just talking about if it gets passed. With that in place,
Mhm.
people want to be informed.
Yep.
And that'd be just wonderful, as long as they can be, which is great that you can, so.
Yeah, we can get a video up online, I'm sure. I think that
I'm sure.
we can, it may not, be real time, but I think that there's something we can do.
Yeah,
And we've tried very hard to make these meetings hybrid and as accessible as we can. So,
Yeah, I think it's really important, especially for those who may be elderly or those that, can easily sit there and, attend, at least get the gist of the meeting.
not a lot of great things came out of COVID, and not everybody stayed with a hybrid format when they could, but I think the participation in Enfield and the feedback we've gotten has been good, and we've tried to support it whenever we don't have like like me today with my technical difficulties. So I appreciate that. Kurt?
Yes, we'll follow up, Kurt Barnhart. Where, if the town does vote to go SB2, where would the deliberative session be held?
We can't answer that today because we have to make a decision. So normally I would tell you it defaults to our standard location, which other than COVID has been, or in the Enfield Village School gym. If they were doing some kind of activity, they had the gym full for some reason, that would change, but the select board is statutorily charged with providing a venue, and so we would post it.
I mean, that's basically and you're saying it'll be videoed. Around the schools in the past, I don't believe it's been set up for, other than the cable.
The cable has done the video.
That's a private
post-
entity and.
They posted online.
Right, but
We
it's
do a
all-
link to that.
Yeah.
There's also the possibility that the town could, if we budget for it, hire somebody to do it.
Yeah, or we can, I think in the past too, we've considered, you can take the video, compress it and put it online on YouTube, too, that's from the cable channel. So I think there's a lot of avenues to make it work. But Dan?
Just gonna answer one of the budget committee questions that you had.
Mhm.
I served on the school district's budget committee for 6 years. The default budgets it never went to default budget, okay? The budgets that the budget committees put forward for 6 years were the budgets that were approved. So I believe that the budget committee work doesn't change. If anything, it helps the budget committee because they try to keep it down so that it's within. I mean, I think for 4 of the 6 years, the default number was higher than the budget number.
Right. And so just as an
So-
explanation, if your budget is, so if the default number is higher, right?
Right.
So if you vote no to not approve the budget, you go to the
the
default, which
default.
is higher.
Right.
It's a little bit of mental math, but
Yeah.
is that fair?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's happened quite a few times. right?
There was only one time that, that the budget has failed, since I've been involved, so in the last, 10 years. And that was when we tried, it was after the renovation passed, and then the next year, the increase was 10%, and that did not fly.
Okay. Madeline?
Yeah, I just had some information here from Wendy Hundley. I'd asked about the number of absentee voters, just out of curiosity of what that might do. And she said, for the January 2024 presidential primary, there were 1,255 ballots cast, of which 81 were absentee. The state special election in August of 23, 658 ballots, 50 absentee, and then the town election of officials, which was last year, that would have been that part of the paper ballot part of town meeting. There are 385 ballots cast, of which 60 were absentee. So that might help people get an idea of how many more voters you might pick up with a system that would allow people to vote on the whole thing by absentee ballot.
That's good information too. Thank you. So, do we have any new questions or things that would help folks understand this better? Nothing can be changed statutorily tonight. This is an information session. So I want to make sure everyone's had a chance to kind of mentally work things out, and also know, you're welcome to ask the lead petitioner. You're welcome to
My
ask.
name is Deborah Ford. I don't think I said that.
You did at the beginning.
Okay.
did.
You call me Deb, but
I'm sorry. Years
it's all right.
Years of habit. So, you're welcome to ask Deborah, and you're welcome to ask anybody in the town office for more information. We'll do the best we can. We can't provide something that doesn't exist right into the future, and we can't necessarily give you a projection, but we could give you the past data and you can make your own projections. So, is there anybody who has any other questions or comments on SB2? Either here in person? Folks online? Okay, seeing no further comments or questions, I'm gonna close the public hearing, and you are welcome to stay for the rest of this. Thank you, Deb, for answering all the
Thank you.
questions. I appreciate it. And we are going to give you a couple seconds. If you want to stay, we'd love to have you. We're gonna do the regular business. If not, I'd ask if you're leaving, if you want to have a conversation, if you go to the far hallway, just to make sure we can continue to hear. I'll give everyone a couple minute or so.
Can you consider letting me make a public comment before the other business?
What's the pleasure of the board? Typically, we don't change our agenda for one thing.
It only take me 2 minutes.
Yeah, I understand that. I just, if we do it, we set a precedent for every time someone asks us. I don't
Stick
know.
around, we like having you.
Yeah, I think it makes sense to not probably set a precedent that we can't keep later. Okay, So next up is the approval of the minutes. They're in your packet. It's the minutes of February 6th, 2024. I'd entertain a motion.
I move that we accept the minutes posted.
I'll second that.
Okay. Do we have any discussion, questions, comments, corrections? Alice, do you have anything that needs to be changed?
No,
And
thank
if you want
you.
to, if you feel comfortable, Alice, if you want to stay off mute or just take yourself off as it works, that would be fabulous. Since this is our business portion.
Yeah.
Okay, so seeing no questions or comments, all those in favor of approving the minutes as presented, signify by saying aye. And then I'm an aye, and Alice,
Roll call.
oh, because she's one online. Yep, so we got John,
Aye,
Tracy, aye.
Kate, aye, Alice.
whoever I am.
Aye.
So there's, it's unanimous by roll call. Let's see, board report, John?
Well, we had some very exciting, budget meetings and, the joint, select board, budget committee hearing. So we have a pretty good idea about that. I would say that what impressed me was even some people who were not happy with the budget said, this budget committee has done a fantastic job and an incredibly clear presentation. So I think that stands us well. And I think the budget, it was challenging, the process. We had some big expenses. And not only, two costly new buildings, but also a bit of a surprise in medical insurance, bit of a surprise in Casella trash. But I think we're presenting a budget that I'm gonna grit my teeth here. I think it's the absolute best we can do and do the things that we are committed to doing. And I'm happy with the process. And I think I'm moderately happy with the results. If there a way to cut the budget, we would have done it. We could not cut the budget without doing damage to the town or to our employees. Thank you.
Thank you. Tracy?
I agree with John's last statement. We couldn't do it without doing damage to the town or its employees. That's exactly right. The Energy Committee has not met, so not a lot new there. However, we did meet with the MFAC committee this week at Whitney Hall. So we had an opportunity to see how progress is going there. We took a tour of the building. They've completed demolition for the most part and are now officially broken ground and are digging in the backyard for the addition to the library. So all that's going very, very well. It was a good opportunity to see how things are going, and I think it's progressing very nicely. They're saying they're still on target for a completion by the end of this year. But they're optimistic about that, and but they're doing very, very well.
Great. The Conservation Commission did not meet in February, and the next meeting will be March 7th. Alice, do you have a report?
Yep, the Enfield Village Association met, and they are looking forward to their next capital project. Not sure what that will be yet, and we are also preparing for the Shaker 7 race, June 23rd. And I actually was not very well during that meeting, so I couldn't stay the whole time. And the Heritage Commission has not met. I think they're meeting next week. I'm not sure that I'll be able to attend because I do not believe that they offer a hybrid option.
Thank you very much, Alice. Is there any questions or comments from the board on the reports? Any questions or comments from the public on reports? The town manager's report is coming from Elisa because our town manager has taken a vacation as he is so
Though
entitled.
he wrote it, I did not.
I'm sure he did.
So, staff report. The Enfield Police Department is happy to announce the hiring of Federico Moreno, if I pronounced that correctly, as the new uncertified police officer. Federico started working with the town on February 12th and will be working through field training prior to attending the New Hampshire Police Officer Training Academy in June. And we are still working on finalizing the hiring of a new police assistant. Whitney Hall and Public Safety Building, Whitney Hall demolition and excavation for the Whitney Hall project is going well. The crews have mostly finished demolition of the town offices and library, Mr. Were there. This week, there will be more carpenters on site working on structural demolition and stabilization. On Wednesday, the helical pile contractors will be mobilizing and will be installing helical piles starting on Thursday. They should be completed with the helical pile installation next Monday, February 26th, and by March 1, footings and foundation walls will be going in. He would like to thank the Public Works for trucking soil from the site. This reduced the total cost of excavation for the taxpayers of Enfield. The Public Safety Building continues to work through the final budgeting phases with the goal of breaking ground in April or May. Methodist Hill property, Ed Morris plans on adding the Methodist Hill property to the March 4th Select Board meeting agenda. If you have any questions that should be answered prior to or at this meeting, please let him know. Shed Street, the current plan is for the final building of the Shed Street property to be demolished in early March. After demolition, the property will be graded and prepared for sale in the spring after the ground thaws. After town meeting, we will finalize the RFP and plans for public advertisement for the sale of this property. IT, we have started the process of upgrading our computer security systems to Managed Endpoint Detection and Response, MEDR. MEDR is a modern security solution that has evolved from traditional antivirus. With cyber criminals now cracking the code of traditional AV antivirus solutions, MEDR uses artificial intelligence to identify and monitor all unusual behaviors rather than only detecting and actioning those known threats. The town has also started the migration from Microsoft 365 to Microsoft 365 Government. Microsoft Government is a specially designed and managed cloud-based suite that ensures federal compliance, will keep town data segregated on special government servers located within the continental United States. This is extremely important for our police department to maintain CJIS, Criminal Justice Information Services, and State of New Hampshire compliance.
So it's begun, we're putting ourselves in the hands of artificial intelligence.
At least it's not TikTok.
Okay, are there any questions or comments on the town manager's report that Elisa can either answer or convey to Ed?
ChatGPT will be writing the next one.
Listen, don't pick on my
They may have written that.
Don't know. This is what we talk about, leveraging technology. So let's move on to the business of the evening. We have a sewer connection request on Meadow Lane from the McLaughlins. You have that in your packets. It's a request for a municipal sewer connection for Ed McLaughlin, 18 Meadow Lane, Enfield, New Hampshire. Unless there are any questions or comments ahead of time, I'd entertain a motion.
I move to approve the request from Ed McLaughlin to connect to the property located at 18 Meadow Lane to the Enfield sewer connection collection system.
I'll second that.
Okay. Discussion, questions or comments? Seeing none, I'm gonna take a roll call. John?
John says yes.
Tracy?
Tracy, yes.
Kate says yes. Alice?
Alice, yes.
Okay, by roll call, it is unanimous. Moving on to Mascoma Lakeside Park resignations. You have 2 resignations in your packets. And I would entertain a motion to accept those.
I move that we accept the resignations of Doug Smith and Kate McMullen from the Mascoma Lakeside Park Committee.
Second.
Okay. Roll call. John?
John, yes.
Tracy, yes.
Kate, yes. And Alice?
Alice, yes.
Okay. The resignations are accepted by roll call unanimously. We have a tax increment finance district advisory committee resignation due to, it looks like they moved. Entertain a motion on that one.
Move to accept.
Second.
Okay, and this is, I'm sorry, for Ben Shapiro, I should have said that. Okay, roll call, John,
John, yes.
Tracy, yes.
Kate, yes. Alice?
Alice, yes.
Okay, by roll call, the resignation is accepted. We have a tax increment finance district advisory committee application from Barbara Rule.
Got some good qualifications.
So I guess my question is, they aren't in the tax increment finance district.
And that is fine because there's a sufficient number that are in.
Okay, I know we have rules, so it meets.
And she doesn't have to own property within the district.
It's a ratio, right? Or not a ratio, it's a set number.
You have to have a majority living inside the district.
Or on
having
property
business in the district.
Okay.
Yes.
So we're okay there.
So I move that we accept Barbara Rule as a member of the TIF committee.
I'll second that.
All right, roll call.
John, yes.
Tracy, yes.
Kate, yes?
Alice, yes.
Okay, so by roll call vote, the application from Barbara Rule is accepted. All right, and then we have, I don't think the ratio study
Norm's not here.
is not,
He is not here and he will come in if you'd like him to.
okay,
But if you're fine with the information you've been provided,
so this
It's
is
up to you.
administrative, I'm sorry.
that is information.
Oh,
If you
information,
want him to
I'm
come in
sorry,
and
yeah.
talk to you about it, he will.
Okay,
How far along is he on the reassessment?
He started. It's gonna be all summer long.
Yeah.
Uh,
I'd rather wait until we have something to report concerning the reassessment. And then we can also discuss the ratio with the bond.
John, how do you feel?
That sounds like a good idea.
I'm fine with that. Alice?
Yeah, I think that sounds good. I'd love some discussion.
I think that makes good sense. So by consensus, we won't have him come in at this time until he has more for us. Everything else in our packet, that's all informational. And so we have, there's no administrative items, public comments. Susan, look at you. We got, sure.
Absolutely.
I've got an ear problem and I'm really off balance.
Oh, it's going around. If you see me rubbing my ears, I have had vertigo for 2 weeks. I'm so sorry.
Well, I respectfully request that the select board ask the DOT to lower the speed limit on the rail trail from Lakeside Park to Pillsbury Street. The rail trail is one of Enfield's greatest assets. And one of the reasons I bought my house is it's across from the rail trail, so I see what's going on. There are, the kindergarten, for one thing, walks on the rail trail, and they have umbrellas when it rains. It's really something to see. There are people every day, all the time. There are dogs. The deer use the rail trail. There are bicycles, there are hikers, there are skiers, there are snowshoers. It really is used all the time. There are people who commute to work in the winter on their snowmobiles, and they go at a horrible rate. The speed limit on rail trails in the state of New Hampshire is 45. And that's too much. And there's going to be, at some point, a horrible accident. I think for in the village, and it's the DOT you have to ask to do it, and it's the Fish and Game who will enforce it. But we need to think about all the people between Lakeside Park and Pillsbury Street who use the rail trail every day, all the time. Some of the snowmobiles go at reasonable speed, and some of them just zoom past. And in the summer, there are electric bicycles, and that's a question that somebody at the state level is going to have to deal with. When there are electric bicycle tours, there are people on those tours that look like they've never been on a bicycle before. They're dangerous, back and forth and all over the place. So as I'm out there every day with my dog and I see what goes on there and I look at it, it seems to me that we need to think very seriously about, and it's the state that does it, the DOT, and it's something called transportation. to lower the speed limit through the village from the park to Pillsbury Street. Beyond it, it's from the park to Pillsbury Street that there are so many people on the rail trail. And it's really nice to see the school use it. They go across, some of them go across Pillsbury Street and investigate the bedstead factory. On the left there, as you go up the hill, there was a bedstead factory. And the school uses it. And those are little kids. And they have a really good time. There are lots of people that walk their dogs, and one of the problems is getting them to pick up, but someone has to pick up after them anyway. So that's what I had to ask you to do. Please ask the DOT to lower the speed limit on the rail trail from Lakeside Park to Pillsbury Street. Thank you for listening to me.
Don't go away. I have some questions.
Yes, oh, good.
Why not beyond Pillsbury Street to the town line?
That would be fine, but I don't know if we could get it done there because people, they seem to go from the park across that bridge that ought to be replaced to Pillsbury Street. And then they go around the block or they go up Union Street or they turn around and go back in the other direction. There aren't quite so many people Pillsbury Street onto the town line or onto McConnell Street, so far as that goes. It'd be a good idea, but I was trying to think of something we might get to happen.
And it's not posted anywhere.
No.
So how would someone know?
It would be posted.
Has
So-
the state done that anywhere? that
The
you
state
know?
hasn't posted, but they're claiming
It's posted.
jurisdiction.
I think it's posted in Lebanon.
But it's not posted anywhere on that trail.
Well, the state speed limit is 45. You know how I found that out? Heidi Murphy's father was a good friend and I taught his children. So I've known Heidi Murphy since she was in school. And I watched Northwood Law and they say the state speed limit on the snowmobile trail, on the trails is 45 miles an hour. And that's too fast for the way.
The
our
only other
rail
comment I
trail
would
is.
make is that electric bikes, by design, will not go over 28 miles per hour
Unless you,
they
can be rigged.
Yeah.
They,
So they're designed to go to 28 miles an hour. So they're underneath that speed limit substantially.
not always.
No,
Well,
they really are.
You back here,
They can pedal them.
We can only go so
You can
fast.
Yeah,
pedal
you
them.
can only go 28. I have them also.
There's 3
and
classes, right?
you're only-
And you're only allowed to take 2 classes. Yeah, and you're only allowed to take 1 and 2 on the rail.
Class 3 is currently banned on the rail
That's, yeah,
Yeah.
by Fish and Game.
Yes.
What's class 3? Because that's not something I know.
every bike
Class
comes with
3
class.
can go over 28 miles an
Yeah.
hour.
Right.
I still don't think you're gonna hit 45 downhill with a tailwind.
No, no.
I don't know, it wasn't the speed so much as the
let's-
tours with the people who are not, skilled
Susan, I wanna,
on the tours.
Susan, I wanna contain conversation so that we
Yeah.
can direct, so not you calling, because this is still a select board
Yeah.
meeting. So I'd like to give, go ahead, Sue.
So Sue Gibson, you asked about why not past Pillsbury. We're on the rail trail a lot. And you see from Pillsbury on out to Canaan, you're seeing bikers, cyclists and walkers. So during the summertime and obviously during the winter, snow machines. When we're in the Pillsbury to the main street, it's dogs, people, runners, cyclists in that area. And a lot of it is because you have a lot of people that park right down at the park. So they're going either towards town or most of them are going out and around the lake. And there are no speed limits on the rail trail posted.
I know there are.
Go ahead.
Marty Gibson, I've been using the rail trail for decades from Lebanon out this way. There's very little traffic past Pillsbury. The roads that you do cross are dead end or very quietly traveled until you get to Blackwater Road, which is the town line. My biggest issue more than speed is just completely spatial unawareness, which leads potentially to more accidents than the speed themselves. People wandering all over the trail, not paying attention. Their dog is over there in a leash. They have the leash across the trail. They're over here. They're walking 5 abreast, 4 abreast, headphones on. I think speed is less an issue than people just not paying attention, number one. Number two, if you could get this passed, you're dealing with an enforcement issue,
Mhm.
which is fish and game, and they are already spread thin, so. Interesting point. I don't say that I disagree. It's the heaviest traveled section in Enfield from experience. I can vouch for that. You're still dealing with enforcement issue, and I don't know how you do that.
Thoughts from the board? I don't know.
Maybe you post it and more people will pay attention.
Well.
But if it's
we
enforced by Fish and Game and they're understaffed statewide,
Oh, I understand.
I hate to be involved in promoting an unenforceable ordinance. Because
Well,
that's what it is.
It's DOT that does it. I'm just asking you to talk to the DOT about this before there's a major accident. It just worries me when I see what's going on across the street from, I bought my house because it's across the street.
I'm gonna
from
call
the
Dan
railroad.
on Dan. 'Cause
Agreed.
State law is 45. You can post it at 30. It's still gonna be 45.
There's none.
Oh, but the DOT can change it.
No, I'm sorry, it's not driven by DOT. It's driven by Fish and Game, and the Fish and Game, the law is set that the rail trail is 45.
Well,
DOT
Fish and Game
is not a
told me,
road.
Fish and Game told me that the DOT was the people to talk to. So
Well,
that's what I did. And that was what I
You
had
can-
to say. And thank you for listening to me. I think that we're headed for a major accident if we don't do something about it.
Okay. Other public comments, Chris?
you have on your list or agenda under information, the 2023 equalization ratio study.
Yep.
I'm just curious as to what's sort of a baseline or
So that was-
what data you're looking at?
Yep, that was what we were just discussing, about Norm Burdation, whether we wanted him to come in early. So he's willing to meet with the select board if we want to discuss the ratio study or, report or study, but we don't have data yet. You're more than welcome to take a peek at the memo from Norm. I don't necessarily, unless somebody wants me to read it into the public record, I don't think, but here, I'll send you mine. Oh, okay. Yeah, and yeah, it kind of gives you some definitions and an explanation of, but it's all how we do these studies is.
All I was recommending is that we wait a few months for him to get further into the reassessment. And then he can not only give us a report on how that's going, but he can also discuss this issue at the same time.
And the methodology is somewhat prescribed by the state, and obviously Norm's been doing it for years. So basically what you're gonna be looking at, the short story is that it's, the methodology and how the ratio analysis is done to a certain extent. Where we were at, you've heard much people say the median ratio in 2023 was 56.8%. People have cited that in various meetings. So it just kind of restates some of the information that's come up over time. So we're gearing more towards meeting with him when he has findings. Obviously, each time we meet with him, we pay. So we're trying to be fiscally responsible, and we'll wait, I think, to see if he has any data, unless somebody feels on the board that should change.
He's extremely competent,
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Okay, is there any other public comments in person? Any public comment online? Can I give you like the 5 seconds to unmute, so raise your hand? Okay, then there is a non-public session. Before we do that, I just want to do other business really quickly because I think it makes sense. Other business would be that Kate, that's me, did write the town, the select board report late. And so we had a few submissions. Tracy, I couldn't open the file you sent.
Don't worry about it.
Okay, but I think, we can quickly, well, so like my suggestion was we can eliminate we hope this letter finds you well. Honestly, you probably don't need that kind of fluff, and we can just say on behalf of the Enfield Select Board, we are pleased to present this. I mean, like, I think defluffing is in order. And then, but I think you had a really good point about, we have 5 select board
Just drop in
members.
the line about, we expanded the select board to 5 individuals so that we get
Um,
more significant coverage to committee assignments.
okay, hang on, let me. This year, the board expanded to 5 individuals, allowing enhanced coverage. Oh, you know, what, and
Yeah,
Alice
that's
had a nice, she had a nice comment too that was related. Oh, and Alice says she just got booted and she's waiting to get let back in.
There's somebody with his hand up back there.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry, I missed public comment. I didn't see that we were going to.
Yeah, that's when I-
Public session. Just a quick question. I can look it up on my own if no one knows the answer.
I just.
Where,
Okay.
what came about with the Johnson Road, beach thing?
We are waiting.
I attended some Zoom meetings in the past when that was coming up.
We all submitted a number of questions for the town attorney to resolve as far as title questions and access questions. He has not finished his legal work. So we are expecting that report probably within the next month or so. And there will be another public meeting to discuss those answers. At that time, I think then we could talk about the select board discussing anything to be done about the Johnston Beach property.
So was the first, working up to whether the committee was suggesting to move forward or not, that was moved forward, or it got to this point?
It got to the legal questions that we needed answers to before the question can be moved forward in any direction.
And the legal questions are in large part related to what the committee made for recommendations, right? So the committee came to us, they made their recommendations, we were asking the legal questions. The legal opinion will come back and we will go into public session and have a discussion in public. We'll cover some of the, the legal findings, and any of that information will be public at that time. Okay.
She's back.
Okay, Alice is also saying she is having signal problems in case we lose her again. So I want to go back to other business where we were looking at the town report. And Alice had said, hang on, she sent some language. The town select board expanded to 5, allowing for a more inclusive and comprehensive representation of the diverse viewpoints on critical decisions our town makes. Is that
That's pretty wordy.
Pretty good.
wordy?
Yes,
Yeah,
they-
I need
in
some help
committees.
on this. My brain
No,
is.
that's pretty good.
Well, no, I think we're trying to wordsmith it on the fly and like
It's fine. It's a good suggestion.
okay, let's see. This came in via,
Of course, I asked you to, I recommended you reduce the 3 paragraphs to 2.
oh, that was the, okay, wait, I'm on our select
you're
board
on-
letter. We
you
haven't
got it.
gotten there yet. I agree with you. So I'm gonna try to make. this
Typical
kind of-
English professor.
Oh,
Shorten
no,
it, shorten it,
honestly.
shorten it.
Well, that was, I kind of went for like, say nice things to people in bullet points. Why did I do this? Okay, I'm
Did you
not
edit
able to
Henry?
function today. I'm sorry, guys. I'm a total. I'm gonna be over here rubbing my ears until I either get better or.
Oh,
That
sounds just so miserable.
I've been sleeping more than you've ever seen me. I'm basically missing if I'm not in a meeting or in front of somebody. So you're gonna see me. It's not because I don't love you or because, but electronic noise in particular is harder. What it is. Okay, so wait, are we going? In my brain, it's not my best brain either, so I'm not gonna lie. So the select board expanded. Should we indicate that it was following a town meeting vote or is that too
No.
much information? Okay, select board expanded to 5, allowing for,
Kate, there was a more concise version immediately following that word.
oh, yep, I see, this is why I said it on my best brain, thank you. Okay, allowing for stronger support of our town committees and a widened array. I think widened array gets a, what's that? It's dash? John, is it widened dash
No.
array? No?
No.
Okay.
No,
Okay.
no dash.
Okay, I'm like a widened array of viewpoints when discussing matters most important to the town. Or just want to stop at viewpoint.
Viewpoints.
Yeah.
Okay. Wordsmith, okay. And then, it's a list of key points, Because we've gotten to the, and you had a question on recommendations, for Johnson Drive and Methodist Hill. So they've made their recommendations, but we're not
And that's fine,
done.
we can use it.
Collusion of, what if we say recommend, including, include recommendations from, let's take conclusion of work. Recommendations by both the Johnson Drive and Methodist Hill Property Committees.
Your verbiage is fine.
Okay, but that, hey, taking out words is good. So we'll take those out.
Okay.
Okay. Other than that, if you see. Okay, wait, which is available on the town website, and I'm sorry, and it needed an A limited print run. Okay, so and then if you see something that's like a missing comma or whatever, you're gonna give it to Lisa and she's gonna make the magic happen.
Or we'll change the name of the committee to the implemented.
Which one's that?
Johnston Property Use Committee.
Johnson, oh Jesus,
There's no
that's
guard-
right.
That's all right, I'll fix it.
Johnston, yeah. By Johnston
We just want to use the official.
Property Use and Methodist Hill Property Committees. Okay, we got that. All right, I'll send you that copy. Then the other one was very last minute because I forgot that I was supposed to write the dedication piece. I think I had that as an action item. And I'm not wearing my glasses, so even worse. What did I do with it, you guys? Today's not my best work, I admit to it. And that's because I wasn't able to get into my drive.
You guys are just gluttons for punishment.
This is fun to watch.
Right, just, come on, you already watched me torture myself once today, and it was brutal then. Okay,
I don't get to come to a lot of meetings, so if I show up,
no,
I'm
I mean,
here.
we're
I
thankful to
gotta-
have you.
gotta see
We are
it
happy to have you. All right, let me just make a new, because I realized it wasn't a document.
Oh.
All right, so the annual report dedication, John had the very, I think, good idea of, so we take the ingratitude, we take the dedication, and then we take out. So you said keep the first two paragraphs, or no, take the first paragraph and the last paragraph.
Right, and everything in the middle.
To the
delete.
collaborators, is that? Oh, to our community, that's it, right? It goes to,
I don't have it in front of me
I
anymore.
think he had said he wanted the first paragraph and the last two, and there were like three in between.
Yes, you
yeah,
got it.
There you go.
okay, the
You
middle
got
three
it.
go. No, I like it.
Keep the first one and the last two. Oh, look at this. A piece of paper.
Okay. So that has the to our community and the last paragraph and with heartfelt appreciation. And it's inclusive and we didn't forget anybody because it's. Okay, I will save that and send it to Elisa and everyone can read it in the town report.
Bingo, bango.
Okay, and it's gonna be exciting and everyone wants to read the town report.
Sure.
So we're gonna sign this. And then while we're signing this, I am going to entertain a motion to go into non-public session in accordance with RSA 91-A:3, Roman numeral 2, open parentheses, small a, close parentheses, for the purposes of the town manager annual evaluation. I will state that so this is done in non-public, and then after we're done, if we've made any decision one way or not another, that has to be done in public. So we'll reopen the door and everyone can.
If you guys wanna wait out there, that's fine.
You can totally hang out.
I'll take a pass. I'll trust you.
Yeah, well, it's gonna all be public no matter what. It's the bottom.
Hey, thanks for coming.
Oh, and I need a roll call. So John. A roll call, yes, to go in and out. Oh, wait,
Yes,
I didn't
yes.
get a motion, did I?
Tracy, yes.
Did I mess up? I didn't get a
No,
motion.
that's fine.
Motion to go to non-public.
Yeah,
second.
Tracy, yes.
Second, you're second. Okay, now John, yes.
Yes.
Tracy, yes.
Tracy, yes.
Kate, yes. Alice?
Alice, yes.
And then we're gonna put the other folks, can they go into the waiting room or how does this work?
I don't know how to get rid of them without getting rid of everybody and leading the meeting, which.
Alice, would it be okay? Why don't, hang on, I was gonna say we could call Alice in.
If the meeting is open, can I just say something?
It is still open.
I mean, if we're in,
You are not,
Session.
I have not closed it yet. I think we're gonna lose Alice.
I suggest that we not do this part of the meeting at this time.
Okay, you are public still.
Yeah, I just wanna have a brief discussion on approach, but let's do that in non-public because we
Okay.
usually discuss the approach in non-public anyways.
Fair enough.
And that's why I sent around a note earlier today.
Fair enough.
Yep. Alice, we
It's
can call you in.
okay. It's okay if I mean, whatever you want to do. I'm about to transition.
I'm gonna call
off
you
the
in.
screen, so
It's
gonna
super
be
easy.
chaotic. Okay. Okay.
Okay.